Miss Brasho in my 3rd grade classroom. Today we are going to model for you some strategies from the carry text that I've been implementing with some of my students. We learn in the carry text that there's a multiple array of strategies that you can use, and we are going to highlight quickly different strategies that we've been using, because we know it's best sometimes to use many different strategies to help with our comprehension. So I'm here with you with a few of my readers, and we're going to show you some things that we've been implementing. These students we have been working on close reads. We completed a close read on a story called A Rising Star. We first began by doing our close read by looking at a checklist that's on the back. Brianna, can you tell us about the checklist?
The checklist is how we know how to do the stuff. It's like our directions. And Miss Brasho reads them to us so we know what to do.
Okay, and so on this close read, we had 5 things that we needed to do. We first needed to number each paragraph on the left-hand side of the page. Then we chunked the text by drawing a horizontal line to separate each paragraph. Then we read each paragraph, and we wrote one question we had as we read, and we did that on the left-hand side. Then we needed to read each paragraph again and write a quick summary. And last, we needed to skim the text and use highlighters to highlight 5 facts. In the carry text, we learn that it's important to use highlighters to help our brains think about what we're reading. Caleb, show us how you highlighted and why it was important for you to use a highlighter. How did a highlighter help you?
It helps you to get the spot, you can keep your spot from the text, the exact same spots, and how you know it.
So you found the answer, you were able to focus in on where the exact answer was in the reading selection.
Yes.
By using a highlighter. Did a highlighter help anybody else know it? Taryn, how did it help you?
It helped me because it helped me answer the questions that they asked on the paragraph.
Okay. Now, we also did something called annotating our text, and that's a big fancy word for taking notes as we read. In our text, on the left-hand side, we wrote questions that we had as we read, and on the right-hand side, we wrote a quick summary. I also encourage students to use pictures in their summary to speed along our note-taking process. And then we had a quick writing activity at the bottom. I noticed that Kelsey used an exclamation point and a star. Did anybody else use any symbols as they took notes? Taryn, tell us about the symbols. Can we see your chart? How did using these symbols help you annotate your text?
Well, it helps me because I know the star means that something is important, so you put it over something that is important. The question mark means it's like a question. It's like, I have a question. Then exclamation point means I am surprised. And then you circle a word if you're unfamiliar with it.
So any words you don't know, you can circle.
Yes.
So this is a way to help us take notes quickly. And our close read, do we read it just one time or several times?
Several.
Also, so that helps us annotate our text. We also did a ThinkAloud on a fresh read that we had called Wolves of the Sea. Can everybody turn to Wolves of the Sea?
Yes, ma'am.
We annotated this text, and we also used symbols, and we also used our highlighters to help us find the answers. I'm going to look in here real quick. Kelsey, point to where you highlighted an exact answer that it asked you.
It asked me, write 2 statements of facts from the selection, and I highlighted the 2 facts from the story, and then I put them over here.
So that helps you organize your thoughts. Awesome. Okay, did it help anybody else? Brianna? Point to where you highlighted in your story that it helped
one
you?
of them. And it says, the clicks and whistles killer whales make also help them communicate when they're hunting. And that one helped me with number 2.
Now, I saw you separated your paragraphs too, like our checklist told us we could. Also, I noticed on the other side of your paper, you wrote in your own brain. So we know that you can't always, sometimes we have to make inferences and infer the answer and use our schema. We can't always find the answer in the text. We have to make an inference. Is that what you did for number 1, 3, and 4? Tell me about why you wrote in my own brain.
Well, on number 1, it says, why did the author write this selection? And I chose B.
So that's author's purpose.
And I just thought in my own brain about it.
So you made an inference? Good.
Made
So that answer, it didn't tell us in the selection. The author wrote this story because you made your inference. Awesome. I love it. Okay, Kelsey is going to tell us about her ThinkAloud checklist. We did a ThinkAloud before we started, and we used this checklist. And we're going to do it one more time really quickly for you. When we do a ThinkAloud, we say out loud everything that we learn, our brain is thinking as we're reading. Sometimes when we read independently, we think our own thoughts. But when we do a ThinkAloud, we're going to verbalize those thoughts and think them out loud. So Miss Brasho is going to model for you, and then I want you guys to use this checklist. And anytime I say a cue word, such as I predict, this reminds me of, or I have a certain connection, I want you to put a tally mark over to the side. Okay, we're going to do wolves of the sea. I'm going to begin reading, and then I'll scan around and see your tally mark charts. Wolves of the sea. The orca, or killer whale, is the biggest animal in the dolphin family. Right now I'm thinking, I have a connection because I've seen a killer whale before. This reminds me of the time that I saw a killer whale in real life when my family and I went to SeaWorld. Has anybody ever been to SeaWorld or seen a orca, a killer whale in real life? You have? Caleb, you have? Kelsey, you have? So that's your connection right now with the story. So that was my first part. Like other dolphins, it has a blowhole at the top of its head so it can breathe air. Right now I'm wondering, why does it have a blowhole that it can breathe air? Why doesn't it breathe air through its lungs, through its mouth when it's underwater? I'm also wondering, is an orca a mammal or is it a fish? Because it breathes air, but it can also go underwater. So I'm wondering that as well. Killer whales live and hunt together in families called pods. Right now I'm wondering, I see that a pod is a family that lives together of orca whales, and that's a new word that I've never heard before. Much like the way wolves in a pack live and hunt together. Right now I have a connection because I see why the title of this story is Wolves of the Sea, because the author is comparing wolves that hunt on land to orca whales that hunt in the sea. So that title of this story, it makes sense to me now. It now makes sense. This is why killer whales are sometimes called wolves of the sea. Each pod makes its own special sound so that whales can live in the same pod, can recognize their family. You know what, I have a connection. The author wrote that each pod makes its own special sound. I think of penguins who also make their own special sound. Whenever they come back, when the mamas come back from the hunt, that reminds me of when the mamas and the daddies met in the huge large pack that they're in. They make that sound, and then they can recognize each other. Does anybody remember that about penguins? So we have that connection about a penguin and now an orca whale. They both have that own special sound. That's good. Brianna, I want you to start reading where I left off, and I'm going to go check in on another group. And I want you guys to keep Brianna, I want you to think aloud, and I want you guys to keep doing your tally marks, okay, for the think alouds, and I'll check back in. Brianna, you can start reading where it says each pod makes its own special sound, and do your think alouds, verbalize your thoughts. You can go. Each pod
makes its own special sounds.
Stop and think aloud as you come to something. Alright, so I'm going to come and check in. This is a literature circle group that just finished reading. Hold up your book, boys and girls, and show me what you finished reading. We just finished reading Shallow. We're so excited. We've been working really hard on finishing this in our literature circle. And since we're finished, we did some picture note-taking. I'm going to come around and look. Can you put your picture note-taking on the top? And I'm going to come around and look at how some of you were able to take picture note-taking. This is Savannah's. Savannah, tell me about how you took these picture note-taking.
I read the questions and I answered them by drawing pictures and writing what they're doing.
Okay, so the first box says, who are the most important characters in this chapter? And you said that it was Shiloh and Marty. Awesome. Tell me about where you wrote about the setting.
I wrote the setting outside because it's mostly outside when he's in Judge Travers' yard helping and doing work.
Awesome. Okay, and this was your way to write your summary. Summarize the important events. Tell me about that summary and that picture that you drew.
It's Marty cleaning up the yard. So, because he's helping Shiloh so he's doing anything.
Marty's helping Shiloh. And then I also saw that it said, give 2 to 3 things we learn about the main characters. And you said to be kind, to help, and to always believe. I love that, Savannah. You did a great job. Okay, I'm going to scan around, and if anybody wants to tell me something specific about your picture note-taking, you let me know. That was Troy's. He did a great job. And here's Connor.
That's where he's chopping up the wood when him and Judd made the barge. And
awesome. Okay, Sierra, let's take a look.
I put my most important characters were Judd, Shallow, Darlin, and Marty, because they were the most that we saw in the chapter. And the setting was at Judge Taylor at the Preston's home.
Awesome.
And I'm not done with this one yet.
You're still working.
And but like I'm showing like this side is who Marty Marty likes these people, but then these don't go together with Judd that much.
So this is what Marty learned on this side of your chart, and then this is what Judd learned. So you're still coming up with something else. That's awesome. And here's Caitlin's. She's working on her picture note-taking.
I'm not finished yet.
That's awesome. Okay. And Juan, can we take a look at yours real quick? So we did the front and the back. So right here we have some. And let's flip it over. Let me see your picture note-taking for this side. Awesome. Is there one you want to tell me about?
No, not really.
Okay. Tell me, let's see, right here. Well, there's a lot going on in this summary. Let me see what we learned. Okay. Tell me about your setting, because I see it looks like we traveled from one house over to another. Are those... Tell me about what's in that picture.
It's to the Preston's house, to Judd's house.
Awesome. Okay, so the 2 different homes that it took place in. Way to go. Okay. Did excellent. Good job, boys and girls. Way to go.